Do you have questions about your reverse osmosis drinking water system? Or just questions about reverse osmosis water in general? I mean, maybe you'd like to know how they're installed, how to maintain. Maybe you've got a specific troubleshooting question. Or maybe you just want to know if a reverse osmosis system is right for your family and you're just here doing some research. Well, definitely this 1 hour or so reverse osmosis live stream is for you. I'll be answering all of your questions starting right now. Hi, I'm Gary the Water Guy, and I simplify water filtration to help you conquer crappy water for your family. So this live stream is for you if you're, like I say, if you're looking for to get some more information about reverse osmosis, or you have a specific question about reverse osmosis. Maybe you're thinking about doing the installation yourself and you got some questions about that, or just maybe how reverse osmosis drinking water systems work. I'm going to be covering all of that today, and but stick around right to the end because I'll have some great buying guide information and also some great information about how a reverse osmosis drinking water system can save your family money. And I'll be sharing common questions about reverse osmosis systems and reverse osmosis in general. Like I say, there's going to be a lot of information here. I'm going to be answering a lot of the questions that you probably never even thought to ask. So hang in there. It'll be some great information. Now, whether you're watching this live or watching the replay, welcome. Of course, the advantage of watching all this live is that you can ask me questions as we're going along. And as you hear information, you can pop those questions. The replay will have a ton of information. Often we get a lot of watches or views on our replay. Just because there's so much information that's being presented. So you can come back to this information time and time again in the future to check out the information. So all the products we're talking about here today are going to be on our websites, waterestore.com in the US, waterestore.ca in Canada. Right there. Whoops, that's the wrong button, Gary. There it is, waterestore.com in the US, waterestore.ca in Canada. All right, so while you're getting your questions ready, you just pop them in the right-hand side of the screen and I'll be answering them here live on YouTube. And but while you're getting that ready, what kind of questions are we looking for? Like I say, anything you want to know about reverse osmosis drinking water systems, anything you want to know about the technology or installation, that kind of thing. Care and feeding, how often should you replace your filters? How do you know what the right filters are for your reverse osmosis system? All that kind of information we're going to be talking about here today. So while you're getting those questions ready, I got some big news about next month. So I do a live stream typically the last Thursday of every month, and next one will be November 25th, and that's Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend. So during the live stream, I'm going to be sharing with you coupon codes to give you big discounts on everything from reverse osmosis systems to replacement filters to UV systems, filters for UV systems. Even have some water softener stuff going on there, but again, the only way you'll be able to take advantage of those Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals is by tuning into my live stream. And again, that'll be, November 25th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, here live on YouTube. GaryTheWaterGuy.com is my YouTube channel. And like I say, we'll have all kinds of information there. So stay tuned. I'll be showing some more information about that as time goes by. And let me just fade over here. All right, so on your screen, you can see a poll on the right-hand side. And we had a lot of people participate in the poll. I put it up a few days ago on our community tab on the Gary the Water Guy YouTube channel, and a lot of people voted. Let me see if I can get that, just to see how many votes we got on that, and what was the popular choice for that. Let me just see what we got here. And here it is. Yeah, so we had 39 people vote in the last few days. And 51% said they like the super pure, the super pure water that reverse osmosis gives you. Eliminates discarded water bottles, came in second at 28%. Makes great tasting tea or coffee, came in at 18%, and the last one was the ice cubes. So anyway, I'd really appreciate it if you could vote on that, and I can see what you folks are thinking here today. And also, when you submit your comments or questions, please also say who you are and where you're from. And we'd love to share that information too. So I'm Gary the Water Guy, and I'm from Midland, Ontario, which is in cottage country north of Toronto. And that's where we are. So anyway, get those comments coming in there and those questions, and I'd love to answer them. All right, so let's have a look here. So this is the poll that we're looking for. It's on the right-hand side of your screen. Oh, I see a bunch of you have voted already. Thank you for that. That's great. Keep those votes coming in. So what do you like best about having a reverse osmosis drinking water for your family? And we'll revisit that a little bit later on. Maybe we'll pop in a couple times during the live stream and kind of see who's voting for what. Let me just fade over to that and go back to the... All right, great. So again, we're waiting for your questions to pop up. We got any yet? KM was on here earlier, here to upvote and say thank you for sharing your knowledge. Well, you're welcome. I appreciate KM. I think we've heard from you before. Thank you for that. But KM says he's got to run, so he's got to get going. So anyway, but I appreciate you checking in with us and seeing what's happening, and hopefully you'll watch the replay. All right, so why is water quality so important? Well, I don't know if you know or not, but 90% of diseases are water related and cause 80% of the deaths in developing countries, about 6 million people every year. So as you can appreciate, it's a big deal. So the introduction of point of use reverse osmosis systems, those are reverse osmosis systems that go underneath your kitchen sink, like this kind of a system here, has really made a big impact on great drinking water throughout the world. The systems are quite inexpensive. They're small. They're easy to install. They're very versatile. They don't take a lot of maintenance. They don't take any energy per se. They just work off water pressure, so that you don't have to plug it into hydro, that kind of thing. And so they're a great system. So it's definitely something you should consider. But if you haven't already, let's talk some more about it and see what we come up with. And so I did a live stream a few months ago now. It was about live stream reverse osmosis myths and misconceptions, which is not all that easy to say. And so if you're looking for more information about that, you've been reading maybe online, and you've heard some pros and some cons of reverse osmosis, I definitely encourage you to check that out. I'll put a link in the description down below where you can check that out. And so, all right, let me go back to that. And so what is reverse osmosis water So it's water that's being forced through a membrane. It's through a skin, basically, that under pressure it's being forced through that. And so what happens is the low mineral content water, the very close to being pure H2O, goes through the membrane. The high mineral content water and the waste gets flushed to the drain, and that's what keeps the membrane clean. That's basically how those systems work. So I see we're getting some comments coming in, so let's go to the comments. And so this is from Will Justice, the drain doctor from Harrington, Kansas, master plumber and HVAC shop owner operator. Well, welcome. Thanks for tuning in and joining us. If you have any questions, Will, during this live stream, I'd love to hear them from you. And again, I'd love to hear from folks, even if you're just signing in exactly like Will just did. That's great. And we also have Vegan Fails. Kevin from Waterford, Ontario, which is near Lake Erie, moved from last year into a rural home. Inherited an RO system using iSpring water brand filters. Does your store sell those or interchangeable filters? Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I really encourage you to look at, and we're going to get into this when we talk more about the buyer's guide, is that you need to look at a system that uses interchangeable filters. So all of the reverse osmosis systems that we handle use non-proprietary filters. And the iSpring ones do too. And that's great. So we have them on our website. If you're not sure exactly which RO filters fit your system, I'm going to be talking about that in just a little bit. But if you're ever not sure, you can always email me a picture of your system, and from there I can help sort it out. What's my email? info@waterestore.com. So info@ the word water, the letter E, store.com. All right, great. Thank you for that. And we've also got Kip's Camera, Southern Indiana here. Welcome, Kips. Is a second tank mandatory if you add a boost motor for faster output? The issue is not quantity of water, rather the quick flow for a gallon or less most times. No, a second tank isn't mandatory. And so that's, if you want to do it in stages, I definitely would suggest that. So if you've got one tank and you find that the water isn't flowing quickly enough, then add a second tank. And if your reverse osmosis drinking water system is installed in the basement or away from where the faucet is at your kitchen sink, like mine is, I definitely suggest you put another tank immediately under that faucet, and you'll be amazed at the difference that makes in flow. And it's relatively simple. You just cut the tubing. Hopefully you've got 3/8 inch tubing, but even if you've got the 1/4 inch tubing, it'll work. Just put a T in the line, connect up the second tank right underneath the faucet, and you're good to go. Definitely do that first. If you find that it's still not coming out fast enough for long enough, then I definitely suggest you get a delivery pump, not a booster pump. So we're going to be talking about pumps a little bit later, but there's two different kinds, and you want to make sure you don't mix them up because it definitely will make a big difference. All right, great. And optical inch. I live in South Florida and have copper plumbing in my concrete slab. Is it true that I can't put in an RO because I have copper plumbing? So I think what you're talking about is a whole house RO, and I think what's been mentioned to you is that RO isn't compatible with copper, and that's 100% correct. And the reason it's not compatible is reverse osmosis water has a low pH. Okay, so what do? Well, all you do is you add a calcite filter. A calcite filter is a neutralizing filter. So what that does, it adds a small amount of calcium to your water as it passes through after the reverse osmosis system, but before it's hooked up to your household plumbing. And then you can use copper pipes, no problem, because it raises up that pH. Yeah, it's going to add a little bit of mineral content back into your water, but it's still going to be far better than what you were starting with. Far better. and now it'll be compatible with all your copper or your brass, and you don't have to worry. Great question. I really appreciate that. All right, so let's move on and talk a little bit more about reverse osmosis. So, and keep those questions coming. So one of the things I often speak with folks about is how does a reverse osmosis system work, or explaining how reverse osmosis systems work. And again, I've got some great YouTube videos. I've got some links in the description down below. I'm not going to go through the whole process, but like I say, I explained it to you briefly there a few seconds ago. Water under pressure is forced through the membrane. The good water gets stored in the tank, but now it's under very low pressure. Once it gets stored in the tank, that's why you need that tank, so it can repressurize the water so it can flow out to your household plumbing. But again, you can follow up on those videos and check that out. So while we're waiting for some more questions, come on, keep those questions coming, guys. Let me talk a little bit more about following the water path through a reverse osmosis system. And I'm going to use this Gold Line 50 back here. All right. So basically what happens with this system, you can see it says 1, 2, 3 stages. I'll turn it so you don't get too much glare. Something like that. So the water flows in through this side. So first it goes through a sediment filter, then it immediately goes through a carbon filter, then it goes through another carbon filter. Why are there 2 carbon filters? Contact time. You need the contact time to remove the chlorine from the water. If you've got chloramines in your water, I'll be talking a little bit later about chloramine filters, but if you have chloramines in your water, again, you need that contact time to remove that. Once the water leaves the last filter, if you look at the top, it leaves the last filter, and then it heads through this. It's called an ASO, or automatic shutoff, and that determines when the system's going to shut off. So it flows through there under high pressure. It enters the membrane here. Can you see that? Here. And it flows through the membrane. So after it comes out of the membrane, now we've got low pressure. So it flows through the membrane, and then it comes out, and you can see there's 2 lines coming out. This one here goes to the drain, and this one here goes through the ASO again. So that's where it measures the difference in the pressure, so it knows when to shut the water flow off, so the water going to the tank, because now the tank's full. It reads that back pressure. And then it flows through this last filter, often called the polishing filter. At this end of the polishing filter, it goes to the faucet, and at this end of the polishing filter, it goes to the drain. So it goes to the tank. So what happens? It makes water and it fills the tank. Flip this around this way. Makes water and it fills the tank. Once the tank's full, reads that back pressure, shuts the system off until you start using some water. Then it makes some more water to fill the tank. And that's the process. A couple other parts that you may see here. Can you see that? So that's the restrictor. It needs a flow restrictor to create that back pressure to make sure that it maximizes the output of the reverse osmosis system. And over here, it also has a check valve. So people often ask me, where's the check valve? When they're doing this, they're going through my troubleshooting video about water keeps flowing to the drain. One of the things you need to check is this check valve, and that's where it is. Some of them have it in line, but this one, it's right there. So anyway, those are the basic parts. Anyway, those are the basic parts of the reverse osmosis system. And all right, so let's move on. Come on, keep those questions coming. I'd love to answer them. I'd love to answer yours. Okay, so let's talk about the membrane. So the membrane is here. This is the membrane here. And as you can see, it kind of looks like a scroll. I put it a little bit closer. Can you see that? You can see it looks like a scroll. So water flows through the membrane. The good water goes, the good low mineral content water goes to the tank. The high mineral content water is used to flush the membrane and to keep it clean. So that's the membrane. There's different kinds of membranes. So our Hume Water Saver 75, for example, it has what's called an encapsulated membrane. In other words, it's within this, this housing that when it comes time to replace it, you replace the whole thing. Whereas the Goldline 50 unit that I was showing earlier has a membrane, this membrane. This one I just had a few minutes ago, and you just replace the fitting from inside. All right, so let's move on here. Great. So why even consider reverse osmosis for your family? Well, like I say, you really want to consider the purest water possible. I hear that municipalities are talking about adding fluoride back to their water again. You know, I don't know what's with this fluoride thing. Years ago, they added it to water and they realized, you know, we shouldn't be ingesting fluoride. It's not good for us. It's a terrible product to ingest. Yeah, topographically on your teeth and that to help for tooth decay, that makes perfect sense. But more and more municipalities, Calgary, Alberta is talking about putting it back in the water again. Makes no sense whatsoever. How do you get rid of that fluoride from your water? Just reverse osmosis, that's what you need, and it removes it. And that's what's so important about reverse osmosis. It's not just about lowering the mineral content. It's not just about getting rid of the sodium from your water, etc. It's also removing all this other nasty stuff that municipalities especially are putting in your water. On well water, do you need reverse osmosis? In most cases, yes. I mean, it depends on how your water tests, but it gives you a second barrier to bacteria. If you already have an ultraviolet light, it gives you that second barrier, and it also removes nitrates, nitrites, so much evil stuff in your water. So I see we're getting some more questions coming in here. Please keep them running, going. That's what this is all about. It's Q&A. All right, so Vegan Fails is back again. Kevin again. With the inherited RO, our under sink tank has low flow. Often doesn't fully fill a cup. I've tried emptying and repressurizing, time to replace, or could overuse filters cause low flow? Great question, Kevin, and this is a popular question often asked about reverse osmosis system. So what happens as the years go by, the tank, this is what I'm talking about here, loses its precharge. So this is a small pressure tank. It's half membrane and so it's half air and half water basically when it's full, and that air cushion pushes the water out of the tank. But as the years go by, it loses the precharge. So how do you fix that? Well, what you can do is empty the tank. Now sometimes if it just doesn't empty through the faucet and you could go to lift it up, it still feels heavy, there's still water in it. What you need to do is unscrew this And inside here, there's a Schrader valve, just like on a car tire, right? So you just unscrew this, put a compressor on, and you know, open the valve. Whoops. This one had water in it. Open up the valve and put some air to it, and it'll blow out the rest of that water. Once it's totally empty, check the pre-charge here. I'll bet you it's very low. So all you need to do is recharge it to 7 psi. Now, if any water comes out of this when you open this up, that tells you the membrane's gone, and then you need to replace the tank. But if it doesn't, check the pre-charge. If it's less than 7 psi, put 7 psi in there, and you'll be good to go. Great question, and like I say, a very common question. All right, let's move on. Okay. So we talked about some of the nasty stuff in water and what reverse osmosis removes, and we talked about pharmaceuticals and personal care products. What's that all about? Well, what's happened is for years, you know, doctors have been prescribing pills, birth control pills, other pills, things like that, right? Well, what happens is our body only absorbs so much of that pill. Where's the rest? Well, you guessed it, it gets excreted when we go to the bathroom. Well, all that water, all that stuff is ending up out there. So you're going to hear more and more about removing PPCs or pharmaceuticals and personal care products from your water. And so that's, and reverse osmosis takes that out. Does a carbon filter take that out? Nope. So that's one of the things about reverse osmosis that people often overlook. It's not just about great tasting super pure water, which you may be voting for in the in the poll that I've got up on the screen there, but it's also about all the other stuff that it removes from the water. And we talked about chlorine. The reverse osmosis systems remove chlorine, remove chloramines, herbicides, pesticides, and bacteria, etc. Bacteria is actually larger than the porosity of the membrane, so bacteria won't get through. So keep that in mind. Yeah, we talked about viruses, we talked about salmonella, so many other things. It's really important to get your water tested. And what we look for in terms of reverse osmosis is TDS, or total dissolved solids. So reverse osmosis will reduce those total dissolved solids by 90%, in addition to getting rid of all these other things. So, all right, so we're getting some more questions. Thanks, I really appreciate them. That's great. Okay. So this one is from Scott Miller. Hi, Scott. Our RO system has lost pressure and doesn't store much water anymore. What do you suggest? Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And thank you from Naperville, Illinois. Yeah, so it's important to check to see, is the tank full or not? So like I say, the common scenario, we were just talking about that, is that you go to get a glass of water from your reverse osmosis, you flip it open first thing in the morning, the water flows out great for maybe half a glass, and then peters right out. Lift the tank. If the tank is heavy, that means the problem is the pre-charge is gone in the tank and you need to recharge it. So I just went over that. If you're not sure, again, I've got a great video. I'll put a link in the description. I already have a link in the description down below that shows you how to recharge that. And it's reverse osmosis troubleshooting, little or no flow from the faucet. So check out that video, it goes through the whole process. And we got some more questions here. Will Justice, back again. I'd like to hear your reel of a perfect setup for most homeowners' systems. To give them the best quality of water throughout the home, i.e. water softener, whole house filters, and RO systems. Yeah, that's a great question. One thing always keep in mind when it comes to water, right? It really depends on your water chemistry, okay? Because water chemistry is all over the map. I just did a test yesterday in a home, and the water had a hardness of 4. Which is incredibly low. Pretty much lake water is a hardness of 4. So those folks don't need a water softener, okay? I did another test not that long ago and the water was a hardness of 85, and that's super hard. So those folks, they need a mammoth a water softener. But like I say, it really depends on the scenario. So if we're talking about a municipal water system, town water, city water, that kind of thing, what you're really looking for there is you'd like to have something to get rid of the chlorine from the water. Now, some municipalities, the chlorine is worse than it is in others, so you need to have a look at that. So sometimes you can get by with a cartridge type filter to remove the chlorine, or you can get a water softener that also removes the chlorine. Okay, if the water's hard, like anything above about 6 or 7 grains per gallon of hardness, you definitely need a water softener. So you want to remove the chlorine first, then go to a water softener, and then go to a reverse osmosis drinking water system. I like to have a faucet at the kitchen sink and have a T in the line and connect it to the fridge. Some people say, I don't really want to put a faucet at the kitchen sink. Well, the problem is we've had a few people that have insisted that they don't want a faucet at the sink. A few months later, sometimes a few weeks later, they give us a call and they want to put in. Because how do you fill that coffee carafe at the fridge, right? It doesn't work properly. So connect it up to the fridge if you have an ice maker or water dispenser at the fridge, a faucet at the kitchen sink. That's the ideal scenario. If you have an unfinished crawl space or basement underneath your kitchen, that's where you put the equipment. So that's how it is in my house. Now I'm on well water, so now we have to take it a few steps further. My well water, raw water, has iron in it, has sulfur in it. So I've got an iron and sulfur filter, I've got a water softener, I've got a whole house ultraviolet disinfection system to make sure I've got no bacteria, and then I've got a reverse osmosis system. Gives me a second barrier to any potential bacteria that could be in that well water, and also gives me super low mineral content water, great tasting water, clear ice cubes. That's the perfect scenario in my mind. But thanks for that question. That's great. Dzorba68, how often should I change the RO membrane filter? Last month I only changed the 2 outer filters and the last polishing filter. Yeah, great question. So how do you know when it's time to change the membrane? So what you need for that, you need a piece of equipment. You need a TDS meter, which I have one here somewhere. I had one here somewhere. Here it is. So this is a TDS meter. So you need to measure the TDS of the water. And so I've got some water here, so I'm going to show you. So I just grabbed some water here at the store. So this is, so I don't know if you can see that or not. It's showing 350, I won't hold you too long here, 354 parts per million. Okay, so that would be the water going into the RO. And then you can see the RO on here, right? So this is the water coming out of the RO. Why is it showing so high? This is what happens when things are live, right? It's showing. That's weird. I'm not sure. I must have filled them up from the same container. Anyway, what the point is this, is if you get 300 parts per million of the water going into the RO, you should have 30 parts per million or less coming out of the RO. So it needs to reduce it by 90%. So you need a TDS meter, hopefully one that works better than this one. But you need a TDS meter to check it out, and that's what it'll tell you. Once you see that TDS going from 300 down to, it's maybe 30, maybe it's 40, maybe it's 50 or 60, it's starting to rise, that tells you it's time to change the membrane. But that's a good question. Typically, you don't have to replace the membrane every time you change the other filters. It depends, kind of the rule of thumb we use here is if you don't have a water softener and your water's hard, you'll need to change that membrane about every 2 or 3 years. If you have a water softener, then you'll typically be able to get 5 to 7 years out of that membrane. But great question. All right, let's move on. So, oh, no problem. Scott was saying I already answered that question. Yeah, no problem. People are tuning in and tuning out as we go along. And so here's a good question by Donald Perry. Thanks for the question. What does reverse osmosis not remove? Well, that's a great question. So reverse osmosis, generally speaking, removes 90% of the mineral content. So I've got a whole list here. So let me just flip this over here. All right, so this is a whole list, and it's showing you what minerals reverse osmosis removes. So sodium, 85 to 94%. So it doesn't remove all of the sodium. It removes 85 to 94%. You can see sulfates, calcium, potassium, iron, zinc, mercury, lead, arsenic, magnesium. So you can see the percentages are quite high, typically 90 to 95%. It doesn't remove 100%. And if you want to remove 100%, that means you have to go with distilled water or put an ionizer after the reverse osmosis system or something like that. But it pretty much, like I said, it removes fluoride, nitrates, there's just so many things that it removes. Like I say, bacteria, it does remove bacteria. The only problem, you have to be careful with bacteria because the bacteria will actually start to eat through the membrane and you'll actually start passing the bacteria through. So if you're on well water and you're concerned about bacteria, you need an ultraviolet light. I suggest an ultraviolet light on the whole house, and then reverse osmosis gives you that second barrier. Or you can actually put an ultraviolet light on the reverse osmosis system. Of course, that'll only be treating that one faucet or to the kitchen. But great question. Thanks for asking that. All right. Walter's here. Walter, hi Gary. Prior to installing my own RO system, I had one from Culligan. And with that, with that one, my TDS registered 65 parts per million after it's installed. Mine with my own TDS after the water softener was 1,750 or 175. I'm not sure. So you're questioning, I assume, why the TDS was higher with your reverse osmosis system than it was with the Culligan one. Well, it could be a number of factors. Like I say, these things, I don't know what mineral content you're starting with, what other things had changed. Reverse osmosis, and you have to remember these TDS meters, I mean, I don't know what this is, a $50 meter or something like that. They, I mean, you can get $2,000, $3,000 TDS meters, and they would be more accurate. So it may have to do more to do with the accuracy of the meter. It may have to do with a number of other things. It's always important to test the water before and the water after. Like I say, it should reduce it by 90%. Some reverse osmosis system. Now, the other thing I just realized is that maybe the reverse osmosis system you have now has a remineralization filter. So if that's the case, it uses calcium to add some minerals back into the water, which of course will raise the TDS. So that's one thing I would definitely check to see if you do have a remineralization filter added. All right, good question. Thank you for that. And Walter, to continue with my question, could it be that I have a bad membrane on my RO? I have a booster pump in which it is delivering 65 pounds pressure, and for every good gallon of water I get there too. And yeah, so if you, again, it depends what TDS you're starting with. And like I say, I always keep going back to this, and I know sometimes people get frustrated when they ask me for a simple answer, and I keep saying, well, what's this, and what's this, and what's this, because it makes a difference. If you have high TDS water, like I think Walter has, then over 1,000 parts per million, then you would need a booster pump to force that water through the membrane. If your mineral content is lower, like 500 or 600 parts per million or even lower, you don't need that booster pump. And that makes a difference too in terms of how well it works. So like I said, there's a number of factors that work there, but oh, great job, Gary. Oh, thanks, Walter. I've enjoyed watching every one of your YouTube videos, and Walter's from St. Clair, Michigan. Well, thanks again, Walter, and I do appreciate you mentioning where you're from. I think that adds a real element to these live streams. So thanks for mentioning that. I appreciate it. And keep those questions coming, folks. I got one here from Peter. Hi, Peter. Will RO system work well with well water with high iron content? I do have a Water Boss softener currently. Good question. So to answer your question, the simple answer is yes. Okay, reverse osmosis will remove iron, will remove all kinds of other things, but the problem is it's going to clog the membrane. So it's recommended that you have a water softener, which you have, and that's great. So the water softener is probably also removing the iron from your water. So if you've got iron and hard water and you've got a water softener and it's removing that iron, then you're good to go with the reverse osmosis system because you've probably got very little iron after the water softener anyway, and that's great. If you don't have a water softener but you have high amounts of iron, yeah, you would definitely need to deal with that iron before putting into the water softener. Now this is more important when you're talking a whole house reverse osmosis system, And if some people have questions about a whole house reverse osmosis system, we'll talk about that. Otherwise, I won't talk about it all that much because it's a whole different animal, and yeah, it's used more for agricultural purposes and specialized situations than just adding it to your house because you want to have great water everywhere in the house. It's a little more complicated than all that. But thanks for that question, Peter. That was great. And okay, Walter's adding some more information. I started with 1,075. After the RO, it is still 700. Yeah, there's something wrong here, Walter. Yeah, there's no way it should be down. It should be that high. So like I say, there's something wrong. So what could be wrong? Could be a problem with the membrane. Yeah, you mentioned that. That could definitely be it. Could be something to do with the flow restrictor on the reverse osmosis system. It might be a problem with that. Could be a number of things. So I would check that out to see what's going on. The first thing I would do is change the membrane, though. I think that would be the place to start. All right, great. Thank you for those questions. Got lots more coming and lots more information coming. So how do you know if you need a reverse osmosis drinking water system? Well, the first thing is taste. Does your water taste okay? Does everyone in your family like your water? You know, is there a problem with that? You know, I think that's really where you need to start. And because, like I say, it really depends. If your family doesn't like the taste of your water, they're not going to drink it. And that's what it boils down to. So reverse osmosis will definitely improve the taste. So I definitely encourage you to do that. And oh, and by the way, the subscribe button just popped up. Yeah, I really encourage you to subscribe if you haven't already. That way you can be notified of all the new videos that become available on this channel and a lot of other great information. If your water's high in chlorine, reverse osmosis is a great way to get rid of it for just your drinking water, if that's your primary concern. So it does a great job with that. If you have other dangerous things in your water like nitrates, things like that, definitely reverse osmosis is something you should be considering. Sodium reduced diet. So this is a big one because sodium recommended intake for sodium in water is 200 parts per million. However, sodium reduced diet is only 20 parts per million. And a lot of municipalities have close to 20 parts per million in their water right from the beginning. So getting that mineral content or that sodium content down is really important. And reverse osmosis is especially good at that. So do that. If you don't like the taste, if it makes horrible coffee, again, reverse osmosis is a good choice. But have your water tested. Find out what the TDS is of your water. And go by that, because if your TDS is anything above 500 parts per million is drinking water standard. So if yours is above that, you really shouldn't be drinking that. It's going to cause problems in the future. So definitely have a look at that. And so let's talk about maintenance. Reverse osmosis system. So so generally speaking, for a family of 4 or less, you need to replace the filters once a year. And when I'm talking about replacing the filters, let's look at Water Saver 75 here. So there's 4 filters you need to replace once a year. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those 4 filters. And are you going to be able to tell the difference in TDS before you change the filters and after? Nope. It's more of a preventative maintenance thing. It's more like changing the oil in your car. Does your car run better after an oil change? Well, likely not, unless you haven't changed it for a very, very long time. But it makes the membrane last longer. It makes the system work more consistently, etc. So that's the rule of thumb, 4 filters. Now, some of the manufacturers say every 3 months and that kind of thing. They're just trying to sell you filters. So, like I say, a family of 4, every once a year, more than 4. Every 6 months. Maximum time between service, 18 months. Don't leave them longer than 18 months. Yeah, maybe it's a situation where there's a little old lady living there by herself and she hardly drinks any water for whatever reason, so she wants to stretch it out to 2 or 3 years. Don't do that. You're going to have bacteria growing inside that. You're going to have all kinds of grief coming up. So, and like I say, the membrane, check the TDS. Once the mineral content drops below once it's no longer reducing the mineral content by 90%, that's the time to change to that membrane. So, all right. So let's talk. We got some more questions here. Hi, Donald. Can you take apart the membrane to clean it? Nope, you can't, because this is the membrane. Like I say, it looks like a scroll. Can you see that? So focusing there. It looks like a scroll. And so what happens is it's tightly wound, and the spaces between are very exact and things like that. You can't clean it. You just need to throw it away and get a new one. And that's how they work. But good question. Thanks for that. Peter, do you have a suggestion? What system will work reliably? My untreated water will turn a car paint rainbow. Untreated water will turn a car paint rainbow. So it sounds like you've got oil or something like that in your water. Is that what it could be? Oil or some kind of a shine to the water, some kind of a shimmer to the water. Reverse osmosis, like I say, will work on a huge amount of different things. I don't know exactly what's in your water. To find out exactly what's in your water, you have to pony up the big bucks, $200 or so, to have a full lab test done. I assume you're on well water. Yes, you've got iron in your water. So you need to have a test done. Now, the problem is, by the time you pay for that full test, you're almost halfway to getting a reverse osmosis system. So a lot of folks just put in a reverse osmosis system right from the beginning. Yeah, it's better to have a test, know exactly what's in your water. I agree 100%. But the economics of it just might not make sense. So it's definitely, I would definitely either have a full analysis done or get a reverse osmosis and go from there. And Peter, thanks for your videos on how to repair water softeners if you have salty water and high water volume in the brine tank. I got it to work properly. Well, that's great. Yeah, I have almost 400 YouTube videos that I've made now in the 10 years or so that I've been doing this, and a lot of them are troubleshooting ones. And the most popular, pretty much the most popular ones, are troubleshooting ones: how to fix your water softener, how to fix your reverse osmosis drinking water system, etc. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. And yeah, very good. Thanks for the question. Oh, here's a great question from Michael. How do you winterize an RO system for a summer cottage? A great question, Michael. Thank you for that. You don't, is the short answer. You can't. There's no way you can get all the water out of that membrane and it'll still freeze. So what I suggest to folks do, and a lot of folks do that here locally in cottage country where I live, is disconnect it, put it in the trunk of your car, take it home or somewhere where it's not going to freeze, and leave it there over the wintertime. That's hands down the best way to deal with it. There is no way to winterize it. Yeah, you can unscrew the filter housings. Here, I'll show you. Yeah, you can unscrew the filter housings. You can dump out the water, dump out the filters. You can, take this off and unscrew that and dump it out. By the time you've done all that, it's far easier just to disconnect the system, put it in the trunk of your car, and take it home. Now, one question I often get asked is, how do you undo the fittings? How do you get the tubing off? So here is what I'm talking about. Is that going to focus? No, it still likes my face too much. I go like this, will it focus? Ah, there. Okay, so you can see the fitting there. And so do you see the collars at both ends? So you can see they're darker gray and then tubing. So what you need to do is you need to push in the tubing, push back the collar and pull like that. Okay, and that's what releases it. And then to put it back together, you push it in, but it stops, but you keep on going. You push hard and you can feel it go in, and then you pull it back. And so now it's tight. So that's how you use those fittings. So you can easily disconnect that at the end of the season, put it in the trunk of your car, take it home, and store it for the winter time. Great question. I appreciate that. All right, maintenance tips and tricks. Plumber's clear silicone grease. I didn't bring any here today. I always encourage you to put that on the O-rings. So when you remove the filter housings to do the maintenance, the O-ring is up in here, right? I encourage you right from the beginning to use Plumber's clear silicone grease, because what that does, it does two things. One is it provides some of that silicone that gets embedded into the rubber, so it makes the rubber last longer, but it makes it slide more easily so the O-rings don't stretch. Because when they stretch, they all of a sudden get a bump in them, you tighten it up, it won't seal, and now you got to replace those O-rings. depending on where you got the system, you may not be able to get replacement O-rings, and it ends up being a big problem. So I always encourage you to use Plumber's Clear Silicone Grease. If you want to know where to get it, I've got a link in the description down below. If you can't find the link, just put it in the comments and I'll put a link in for you. Before you start working on the reverse osmosis, wash your hands with soap and water so you got nice clean hands, right? Because you're going to be handling the old filters and handling the new filters. And it's often a good idea to, after you remove the old filters, especially if they smell pretty bad, wash your hands with soapy water before you put in the new filters. It's good practice. When you initially install the membrane or you do initial installation of a reverse osmosis system, you need to fill the tank and empty it, fill the tank and empty it, fill the tank and empty it 3 times to flush that membrane. Now, I've often gotten calls, folks will do a DIY install on one of our reverse osmosis systems. They put it all together and there's almost no water comes out of the faucet. Well, that's because it takes about 1.5 hours to 2 hours with our Hume Water Saver 75 reverse osmosis system, or any reverse osmosis, to fill the tank before you're going to get full pressure. So give it some time, it'll fill up. And great, keep those questions coming. I'll be taking a break very soon and answering your questions, so keep them coming. I appreciate that. All right, so reverse osmosis systems. So I was just talking about some of the filters getting kind of skunky, or as a gentleman said earlier on about inherited, I can't remember who that was, but inherited a reverse osmosis system. It's a good idea to disinfect it. How do you disinfect it? Well, again, I've got a great YouTube video that shows you how to do that. I'm not going to go through the whole process, but you can use a product like this, Sani system. Whoops, you can't see it there. Sani system. I talk about it in the video that you're seeing on the thumbnail on the screen right now. And again, I got a link to that in the description down below. But it's a good idea to disinfect that system. Now, to disinfect it, you need to do that at a time when you're going to be changing the filters and changing the membrane, because that disinfectant is going to ruin the membrane and you need to remove the filters anyway. So it's a good idea if you haven't done that for a long time. If you're on a chlorinated water source like municipal water, city water, it's not as important. But if you're on well water, it's definitely a good idea. So, and in that video, I actually show you a couple ways how to do it. And yeah, and again, if you've never changed the filters in your reverse osmosis system and you want to give it a try, again, I've got a great YouTube video that shows you how to do that. Again, there's a link in the description down below that'll take you to that video. Check it out. It's a lot easier than you may think. If you're a little bit handy, definitely give it a try. You can always watch the video. If it's too much for you, no big deal. You can always call a pro and have them do it for you. All right, so we're getting some more questions. Thank you. Keep them coming. And we've got this one here from Michael. If you take the whole system home for the winter, won't it grow fungus until you're ready to use it again next summer? No, it won't. Like I say, you can always disinfect it, as I was just talking about there, if you so choose, but they don't. And so you have to remember, it was very good water that was in there. It wasn't some nasty water that was in there. So I would empty the tank. I would definitely do that. I would open up the filter housings and empty out the water from those filter housings. But the rest of the water that's in the membrane, that's not a problem at all. When you start it up in the spring and flushes out, it's good to go. We've done it for many, many customers for many, many years, and it works out just fine. But I understand the question, and thank you for that. Okay. And Sandy Water is here. Hi, Gary. Thanks for your video and all efforts. I'll get an answer to customers when they ask how many minerals treated. Ask how many minerals treated water have when you use standard cartridges, 7 stages. How many minerals treated? Sorry, Sandy, I don't understand the question. You know, do you mind rephrasing that question? Like I say, I'm just having a little bit of trouble understanding it. So Sandy's got another question here, and he says, what do you think about flushing systems? Some systems have it. Now, if you're referring to reverse osmosis systems flushing, so maybe whole house or commercial reverse osmosis systems, they have flushing systems on them. I think it's a great idea. It makes the membrane last longer. If that's what you're referring to, that's great. I haven't seen a flushing system on a residential, like a small type of reverse osmosis system like the Hume Water Saver 75 I have here. I haven't seen that, so I don't know. I mean, it's a good idea to flush the membrane. That's why the commercial systems have it. The big commercial system we have here in the store that we use for making reverse osmosis water to fill folks' water jugs, we have that on there. So it's a great way to make the membrane last longer. All right, great. Keep those questions coming. Somebody asked me the other day, what's the highest TDS water I've treated? 4,800 parts per million. That's super high. So drinking water standard is 500 or less, just to put that in context. These folks couldn't do laundry with their water. They couldn't shower with their water, itchy, scaly, like it was horrible, even with softened water and that kind of thing. So in that particular instance, we had to put it in a whole house reverse osmosis system. Totally cleared up the problem, and it went well. But like I say, a whole house reverse osmosis system is not something you do just off the cuff. It's a pretty complex system. But if you need more information about it, let me know in the comments. I can send you some links. I've got some great videos about whole house commercials, reverse osmosis systems. All right, upgrade. So what can you do to upgrade your reverse osmosis systems? You know, people are talking about so many different products that want to do upgrades to vehicles. I see trucks all the time that have these big wheels and all kinds of other stuff going on. So are there upgrades you can get for your reverse osmosis system? Absolutely. So we talked a little bit earlier about adding another tank to increase the flow, improve the flow, and increase its capacity. That's always a good way to go, that you can make improvements that way. Remineralization filter. So some folks are concerned or have concerns, or other people have mentioned to them about they'd like to have more minerals in their water. They're worried about the calcium coming out of the water. So again, before you worry about that too much, check out my video. I've got a link in the description down below about reverse osmosis drinking water myths and misconceptions, which is impossible to say. But anyway, check that out first. But if you want to add a remineralization filter, we have the kits. Yeah, it consists of a filter like this. It's basically a calcite filter, adds calcium back into the water. It attaches right to the top of the reverse osmosis system. Again, I've got a video in the description down below. You can check that out. So that if that's something you're interested in, or it improves the taste of the water. Some folks believe it improves the taste of the water. I don't, but some folks do. So that's an important thing. If you're on well water and you don't have a whole house ultraviolet disinfection system, you can add an ultraviolet light to just your reverse osmosis system. I've got some great information about that. You can always add a leak stop. So what's a leak stop? I've got one right here. And this is a leak stop. Let's see if the camera will focus. Oh, it does. Focus on the leak stop and not on me. So basically it's a small device, and water goes in through here and it goes up through here. And so your supply is over here, and then this goes through a reverse osmosis system. And you see there's a white and a red line. So the white is a pill, and if that pill gets damp, there's a little pockets at the bottom. That pill gets damp, it pushes the red line, the plunger, up and shuts off the water. So we install these when a reverse osmosis is being installed in a finished area, like underneath a kitchen sink or something like that, in a finished kitchen and that kind of thing. We always install the leak stop. It's a great device. Gives you definitely some peace of mind. I mean, we've got a lot of tubes and a lot of connections in a reverse osmosis system. People are always reaching under the sink for who knows what and that kind of thing. And if they jostle it around, you could have a leak. And the thing is, once that tablet gets wet, it doesn't take long. Only a few minutes before it shuts off the flow to the whole system. So it's cheap insurance. Chloramine filters. So if you have so what's chloramine? First of all, chlorine and ammonia makes chloramines. So a lot of municipalities are adding ammonia in addition to chlorine to disinfect the water, because what happens is it hangs around longer. It has a longer, lasts longer, basically. And the problem is it's more difficult to remove, and you don't want to be drinking that stuff. So you can get a chloramine filter. So this is here. So this is ChloroGuard filter. So we have an option that when you order our Water Saver 75 reverse osmosis system, you can upgrade it to one with chloramine removal. So instead of having the standard carbon filters that come with it, it has these ChloroGuard filters. So it removes the chloramines, and it gives you much more capacity for chloramine removal than the standard reverse osmosis system. So it's definitely something to consider. Um, yeah, so let's talk booster and delivery pumps. So I talked about that earlier. So what's the difference between the two? The difference is if you have high mineral content in your water isn't going to want to go through the membrane. That's basically it. So what happens is you need a booster pump to push that water through the membrane. And so if your TDS is 1,000 or 1,200 parts per million, you need a booster pump. So what happens is the booster pump gets installed on the water line going into your reverse osmosis system. So it consists of a couple parts. So here's the pump here. And so it connects to the water line that services the reverse osmosis system. And then there's a flow switch, looks something like this, that gets installed on the water line going to the faucet. So as it senses flow, it turns the booster pump on. As the water is making water to fill the tank, then when the tank is full, there's no more flow, shuts it off, and you're good to go. So that's a booster pump. Now you can get a delivery pump. Now we've installed a bunch of these recently where we installed a reverse osmosis system in the basement or a little distance away. And then what we do is we run a water line to the faucet, to the fridge, and maybe somewhere else. And then we put in a delivery pump to push that water so that, and what the delivery pump does, I'll show you that. Here it is. So what the delivery pump does is as it senses water moving through and the pressure dropping because the water's coming from the tank, it turns on and it pushes that water through from the tank more quickly to the faucet. So when you're pushing water a distance in the home somewhere, more than 20, 30 feet, or well, 20 plus feet, yeah, definitely I would consider getting a delivery pump to push that water through. So those are the two kinds of pumps that you may want to consider if you want to upgrade your system a little bit. And talked about these things already here. Okay, so I've got another question here. Louis, welcome. Louis, good evening. Thank you again for doing these live sessions. Oh, you're welcome. I really appreciate you participating. I know you've participated in the past, and I really appreciate that. And Louis, not sure if you saw my question from the other announcement, but I had a question on RO pump. I've seen these on some of the RO systems, but it does not use electricity. Ah, I know what you're referring to. How does that work? Yeah, I'm trying to remember what those things are called. I've seen them. They're kind of round like this. They're black. Yeah, I had a look at those. I've run into them a few times. They work like a turbocharger, basically. What they do is they use the energy from the water that's going to the drain to push the water in. So a turbocharger on a car works the same way. It has two impellers, if you like, and the one gets the exhaust gases turning the impeller on the other side, which pushes air into the car and car engine. Not electric, of course. And anyway, so the systems work the same, but I can't remember what they're called. But you're right, they don't use electricity. I don't know if they work. Every time I've run into them, there's been nothing but trouble with them. We've always ended up removing them. But I haven't done any experiments with them. Wish I could remember what they're called. But anyway, so I can't really tell you much about them. I rarely come across them. I rarely see them on a reverse osmosis system, on a new reverse osmosis system. So anyway, sorry, I can't help you much about that. There, I believe U.S. Water Systems has this on theirs. Yes, I have. That's where I've seen it, and they make quite a lot of claims in one of their videos about that system. And again, I haven't had a chance to experiment with it yet, so I don't know if those claims are really true or not. But it's definitely something that I need to check out. Thanks for suggesting it. And once I've checked it out, I'll definitely make a video about it, and I'll share the information with you guys. Let's see. Walter's got another question. What pressure would you recommend to be using if you have a booster pump on your RO? Can you have too much pressure and damage the membrane if you're up to 80 pounds? Yeah, I wouldn't go up to 80 pounds. I would keep it definitely below 60, ideally around 50 or so would be the limit. I mean, you've got a lot of pretty frail, does that focus? No? It likes me too much. Here, try that. You got some pretty fail little fittings here in that, and I'd hate to blow a hose off one of those. It would be a real disaster. So no, I wouldn't go 80 psi. I know the people that use it for maple syrup and that they go really high pressures with those, but again, that's a whole different ballgame. And all right, great. Let's move on. So another thing that you can think about upgrading is the tank size. So for folks that are constantly running out of water with the reverse osmosis system, that's something you consider is going with a larger tank. So we have a 14-gallon tank, and to switch over is super simple. All you do is you just take the, where was it? Here. Take the shut off. Whoops. Here, can't see me there. Take the shut off your old tank. Screw it onto the new tank and attach the new tank. I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, the 14-gallon tanks are quite large, but we've used those all over the place. We actually used them in a dog kennel. I don't know how many dogs they had, but it was a pretty big place. We actually put 2 of these big tanks together, and so at night it filled up the 2 tanks. In the morning they could fill all the dog dishes. At the end of the day, they filled all the dog dishes again. The reverse osmosis had time to fill up that tank, and away it went. So that works really well. Also situations where they have large families, they do a lot of cooking and that kind of thing, and have they use all reverse osmosis water for cooking. They go with a larger tank. I talked a little bit earlier about maximizing the flow from your faucet, and one way I talked about was adding a second tank underneath the kitchen sink. That's a good way. But the other thing is to start right at the beginning. Is if your reverse osmosis system has, this small 1/4-inch tubing. Let me do this again. The small 1/4-inch tubing instead of the larger 3/8-inch tubing. You're always going to be an uphill battle fighting that flow. And so, if possible, make sure you get a system with 3/8-inch tubing. That's why I like the Water Saver 75, Hume Water Saver 75. It has the larger 3/8-inch tubing, but so does the Gold Line 50. So, and that gets that water flowing. So I definitely encourage you, when you're shopping for a reverse osmosis system, definitely have a look at that. And Michael is asking about that pump I was asking about. Is it called a siphon pump? No, it's not called a siphon pump. It's called something else. And I feel, and I'm embarrassed that I don't know what it's called. But like I say, I will do a video on it in the future. I'm just going to do a video on the different types of reverse osmosis pumps, and I'm going to include that one in it after I've done some testing. Of course, do the testing at my own house and see how that works out. But it's called something else. Anyway, sorry. All right. So commercial whole house ROs, I'm just going to touch on that briefly. Basically, if you can't fix your water any other way, you go to whole house reverse osmosis system. I've got videos about them. The problem is it's a big thing. It's noisy. It runs a lot. It makes a lot of noise. You need to have a big tank to store the water because you're going to be using it in your whole house. There's a lot of water that goes to the drain. Your septic system probably won't be able to handle it, so you're going to have to put in a dry well. It's a real sales pitch here, isn't it? So, and it's true. I really encourage folks that, this is what they look like, by the way. I really encourage folks that if we can fix their water any other way other than going with a whole house reverse osmosis system, definitely look at it. It's not just the initial cost. There's a lot of ongoing maintenance. There's a lot involved. So if you need a whole house reverse osmosis system for agricultural reasons or something like that, or industrial reasons, hey, I get it. But to do it just for the glamour of it, believe me, it won't be glamorous for very long. And like I say, I've got links to some videos and my playlist on reverse osmosis systems there. So let's talk about installation a little bit. So you can install a reverse osmosis system under the sink, or you can install it in the basement. I prefer the basement if it's available. So if you've got a finished basement underneath your kitchen, it's not going to work, especially if it has a drywall ceiling. It isn't going to work. If you've got suspended ceiling and you can remove some ceiling tiles and you can run the tubing up, yeah, that'll work. As long as the reverse osmosis system is within 20 feet or so of the faucet, it'll definitely work. Connect it to the fridge. I definitely encourage you to do that. Leave enough extra tubing when you install a reverse osmosis system, slack tubing, so you can pull it out when it comes time to change the filters. It makes it much easier than having it at the side of the cabinet with super tight tubing and you can barely get to it. So have it so you can pull it out, do the work outside, and then push it back in. I definitely encourage you to do that. We talked about the leak stop. I definitely encourage you to do that if you're putting it in a second area. And like I say, if you want to improve the flow and its capacity, you can always add another tank. And adding another small tank is a good thing. I do have a great installation video. Again, I'll put a link in the description down below on how to install our Hume Water Saver 75 high efficiency reverse osmosis system. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. And let's see how we're doing with questions here. All right. Keep those questions coming. That's what I'm here for. This is your chance. And by the way, if you do have any questions or comments on any of my videos, please enter them anytime you have them. No, I won't answer them within 15 minutes. I usually try to get to them a couple times a week, and I'll answer them at that time. But I definitely encourage you to ask those questions. I'm happy to answer them for you. And, oh, how are we doing on the poll? I haven't checked that for a while. Okay, so some of you have been, I got 14 votes on the poll. Thank you very much for that. Right now in the lead, we've got, so what the poll was, it's on the top right-hand corner of your screen. It says, what do you like best about having a reverse osmosis drinking water system? And right now, super pure water that tastes great is 57% of the votes. Eliminates discarded water bottles, 29%. Super clear ice cube, 7%. And makes great tasting coffee or tea, 7%. So yeah, I mean, great tasting water is always a biggie, that's for sure. That's why we do things like this. But eliminating those discarded water bottles like this guy here, that's definitely something that we should all be very interested in. So again, I appreciate your comments on that. So okay, let's keep going, keep the questions going, and if you haven't if you haven't put in your answer in that poll, I don't know why I can't think of that. But anyway, please do that, and we'll do a recap once we're finished up here. So, so troubleshooting. So the common troubleshooting concerns that people have is the water comes out fast at first and it slows down to a trickle. So I talked about that. That's a tank issue. And again, I've got a link to my troubleshooting videos down below. Water doesn't come out at all. That's usually an issue with the filters. Something's clogged and that. By the way, I had about a year or so ago, a customer brought in a reverse osmosis system, changed all the filters, no water came out at all. They had a defective filter. So how do you troubleshoot that? What you do is you just remove one filter at a time. Just pull it right out and put it back in, and until you find out which one is causing the problem. And that was the situation. That's the first time I've ever seen that a filter, brand new filter, wouldn't let any water flow through. Water keep flowing to drain. That's a question we often get to troubleshooting, and that means there's a problem with the automatic shutoff valve, which is this little block here. Can focus on that. Yep, this little block here. That's the automatic shutoff valve, or it could be the check valve, or a couple of other things. And again, I've got a link to the troubleshooting video for that one down below if that's your concern. And to be honest, I did a whole live stream on troubleshooting reverse osmosis systems a while ago. And again, it's an hour of content that's all about troubleshooting a reverse osmosis system. Some great info, especially if you pair it with this video today. Some great information there that you definitely may want to check out. May help you dealing with some of those things. And great. And so where can you check out our Water Saver 75? I definitely encourage you to check our website, watereStore.com in the US and watereStore.ca in Canada. We offer discount pricing, we offer free shipping, and it's a great product, high efficiency reverse osmosis system. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. And we talked about the poll. You know, the poll's still going on, so definitely check that out. And what are you talking about, Gary, in terms of a poll? Well, you can see right here. It's on the right-hand side of your screen. If you want to check that out, I appreciate your input. And let's see. So let's talk about a buyer's guide. So some of you that maybe are on the fence about a reverse osmosis system, or you're thinking about buying, what should you be looking for if you're thinking about investing in a reverse osmosis system for your family? Well, I definitely, made in North America is huge. Okay, why is that huge? Well, the obvious reason, creates jobs and things like that. But the difference in the quality of the product is phenomenal. Especially, that's why with our our Hume Water Saver 75, which is made in North America, it also uses John Guest fittings. So the fittings where the tubing attaches is quite critical because that's where potentially you could end up with a leak. So going with those high quality John Guest fittings, which by the way are made in England, definitely minimizes the chances of a leak from that. So that's very important. Make sure you purchase a reverse osmosis system from someone that offers support. I get so many questions about, hey, I bought this thing from Amazon and it isn't working and it isn't doing this and it isn't doing this. Well, you're going to have to go back to the people that you bought it from. Well, of course, there's no support, right? So make sure that you invest in something like this for your family. You're investing with someone that has support. So someone like myself that offers YouTube videos, troubleshooting, has comments. You can reach us for if you have questions or concerns. We definitely offer that support. And again, using your online resources for doing your due diligence, YouTube videos and that is great. And stay away from non-proprietary easy change filters. And what those are, these are not proprietary filters. So proprietary easy change filters are ones that you just unscrew, usually a quarter turn, take them off, put the new ones on. And there's a few brands that offer them. So the problem with those systems, there's a few problems actually, and that is this. First of all, the filters are super expensive. Like they're 4 to 5 times what the filters are for the Hume Water Saver 75. That's number one. Number two, they're proprietary. So when they decide to stop making them for whatever reason, okay, you're out of luck. You need a new reverse osmosis system because you can only get them from them. Like I say, they can charge whatever they want, and they do. But the biggest problem I've noticed with them is after doing a few changes, they'll start to leak. And what will happen is you've just spent the big bucks on the replacement filters, you go to screw them in, and now it leaks between the filter and the membrane. Well, guess what? You can't fix it. Oh, okay, so I'll buy a new manifold for it. Guess what? You can't buy that either. So now you have to buy a whole new system. So I've just found that replacing the filters in reverse osmosis system is quite simple. You know, if it's something you can't do yourself, I would definitely suggest you hire someone to do it, because really the cost to hire someone to do it is less than the incremental cost you'll be paying for these super expensive filters. So that's, you know, for buying guide, that's definitely what I suggest. The other thing we talked about was the tubing, right? Make sure it has the larger 3/8 inch tubing. I'll do that again. The larger 3/8 inch tubing between the last filter, the tank, and the faucet, because that'll make sure you got good flow. If it's got the smaller 1/4 inch tubing, it's going to be pathetic. You're going to hate it. Your family isn't going to use it because it's going to take too long. So make sure you check that out. And we got some more questions here. Charles Miller. Welcome, Charles. Is the 3/8 inch tubing the same as 3/8 inch tubing? Say they sell at Lowe's. Need more than what came with the system? Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, it's the same 3/8 inch tubing. You can buy at any of the big box stores. It's the same size. I mean, our Water Saver 75 reverse osmosis system, for example, it comes with, I don't know, altogether maybe 12 or 15 feet of tubing, 3 or 4 different colors for different things and that kind of thing. It doesn't have enough tubing for you to mount it in the basement and run 20 feet of tubing up to the faucet. No, you'd have to buy that. But again, it's widely available. We have it on our website in larger quantities. I think we might have 25 feet that you can order. But anyway, but you can go into Lowe's, Home Depot, or any of those kinds of places, and they've got the 3/8 inch tubing, and you can just buy it off the shelf and use that. Thanks for that question, Charles. That was a good one. And so this was an interesting video I did a while ago. Let me get to so you can have a look. Best RO for your family. And I did a comparison. I bought the best-selling reverse osmosis system from Amazon, did a comparison with our Hume Water Saver 75. Just to see how the two would compare. And I definitely encourage you to check that out, especially if you're thinking that, hey, you know, I can get it for $100 cheaper on Amazon or something like that. You'll find a big difference on how much water it wastes, a big difference on how quickly or not it fills a glass of water. Again, you're confronted with that 1/4 inch tubing and that kind of thing. It's a really interesting video because I do a lot of pros and cons. The Water Saver 75 doesn't win every category, including price, to be honest. But like I say, check that one out, especially if you haven't invested in a reverse osmosis system or you're thinking about getting a new one. Check out that video. You'll find it very interesting. So we talked about what I recommended. One thing I talked about, when I was talking about what to avoid, one thing I didn't mention was the 7, 8, 9 stage reverse osmosis system. So someone got it in their head that if a 5-stage reverse osmosis system is better than a 3-stage, which it is, okay, then a 7 or an 8 must be better, and I can charge more money for it. So what they do is they keep tacking on other things, other kinds of filters to do various things. And so what happens is it's almost impossible to get the replacements. And it's just bells and whistles that's added to that you really don't need. So 5-stage reverse osmosis system is definitely the sweet spot. So I definitely encourage you to look at that. And a high efficiency reverse osmosis. Like I say, our Hume Water Saver 75, this is my favorite system. This is what's in my house. And it's a high efficiency system, very little water being wasted, far less than half of the water being wasted going to the drain, as with the Amazon one, for example. And again, you'll see that in the video I just spoke about. And but it's a great system. It's relatively low cost, made in USA, 3/8 inch tubing, and non-proprietary filters. It'll last you 15-20 years, no problem. All right. So I talked about earlier about reverse osmosis system saving your family money, and I just want to touch on that a little bit for you. So a lot of families buy water bottles, something like this. This happens to be a water bottle that has reverse osmosis water in it that I paid $1.50 for today. I was shocked how much they cost. And but one thing you have to realize, if you have your own reverse osmosis system, that quantity of water, which is 600 milliliters, 1 cent worth of water, 1 gallon worth of water will produce 2 of those bottles worth of water. That includes the wasted water and that kind of thing. So 1 cent is going to give you the same reverse osmosis water as Gary paid $1.50 for today in this bottle. So you can do the arithmetic. If you think that, you know, in your family, you have a family of 4, each person drinks 4 bottles of water a day. You know, even if you went with spring water, that was half the, or a third of the cost of that, you're still looking at about $8 a day. So you're looking at over $2,000 a year on that. That will easily pay for a reverse osmosis system. It'll easily pay for professional installation. It'll easily pay for that extra booster pump or that extra tank or whatever you want, and you're still going to be ahead. And you probably won't even be half of that $2,000. So that's how it can save your family money. And again, don't forget about my Black Friday sale coming up. My next live stream is Thursday night, November 25th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'm going to have a big Black Friday sale, but you're only going to be able to get the coupon codes, and you're only going to be able to get the sale items by watching that video. So it's going to be on the Thursday night, and the pricing is going to be good till the following Monday, Cyber Monday. And I definitely encourage you to check that out, and I definitely encourage you to join me. I'm going to be doing all things reverse osmosis, replacement filters. I'm going to be doing a whole pile of our Hume water filtration products, and all the good stuff is going to be discounted with those coupon codes. But again, you got to be watching to check that out. And got some more questions coming in here. Thank you, folks. I've got Charles Miller said, thanks you. You're welcome. So Davis Gomez says, hello from Colombia. Welcome, Davis. Great job. Thanks for information of RO. And thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you chiming in, even just to say hello and even to say thanks. I really do appreciate that. Devious DW. After you install a soft water system, is it expected that the TDS number goes up after installation? Mine was showing 91 before install. Now it's like 103. Wondering why. You are 100% correct, and that's right. The TDS will be slightly higher after you put in a water softener than before. Why is that? Because a water softener works on an ion exchange process. So it's exchanging sodium ions for calcium magnesium ions, but it's not 100% efficient. So because of that, it goes up. Typically, it goes up anywhere from about 10%, sometimes 15%. If it goes up 40 or 50%, there's definitely something wrong with the settings. But yeah, that's true. But thanks for mentioning that. That's a good point. And Louis here, and Louis says he's in on that sale. And I appreciate that, Louis, and I hope you join me next time. And I hope all of the rest of you join me next time too. Gary the Water Guy. And like I say, if If you haven't subscribed already, I appreciate you subscribing. I do new videos every Saturday, typically 5 a.m. Eastern time I release them. The only time I don't do a new video on Saturdays is when I do a live stream like I am today. So this live stream, I'll be promoting it this Saturday. I'm also doing shorts. When I do shorts, the short, less than 60-second videos, I do 2 of those a week, usually on a Tuesday and a Saturday, but watch for those. They're great. Upcoming, you can follow me on Instagram, Water eStore, or Facebook, Water eStore. I'm on there. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.